Tonight, the major tabloid that has long cozied up to Trump, flipping on Trump, the parent company of the National Enquirer, AMI, admitting that it coordinated with Michael Cohen on a payment to Karen McDougal, buying her story of an alleged affair with Trump in order to bury the story and help the campaign. In a moment, I'm going to speak with former National Enquirer insider Stu Zakem. He worked with AMI CEO David Pecker, who was a longtime friend of Trump. Pecker reportedly amassed decades of dirt on the president, keeping much of it in a secret safe. Pecker now cooperating with prosecutors. He was name-checked in that infamous Trump-Cohen phone call.
You never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be. Correct. So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be...
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So no. I got... No.
Hey, Noel, how are you?
All right, with me now, Stu Zakem, former senior vice president of the National Enquirer's parent company, American Media, Inc. Stu, good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
I imagine we were not the only phone call made to you this afternoon.
Day,
yeah. What do you make of AMI cooperating here?
I think it's perfectly natural. David Pecker looks out for David Pecker. So clearly the signs were saying to him, time to take care of yourself. And you know, it's not unnatural for him to throw people under the bus for his own benefit. David is a survivor. The guy lands on his feet no matter what has happened through his career, and this is a perfect example of him figuring out how to make that happen again.
Do you think that he was waiting to see what happened to Cohen in order to make this cooperation deal?
No, I think if you look at the information they posted online today, these conversations happened in August. So when it was all happening, I don't think they knew what Cohen was doing. They were operating separately, but both trying to save their own skins, and one did and one didn't.
What does AMI have on President Trump? What do you think they have on President Trump?
Well, you have to look back at the length of the friendship, not just AMI, but Pecker and Trump's friendship. It goes back a couple decades at this point. And I'm sure between all the sources that they have, there's a lot of information, whether it's in that infamous safe that you refer to or other things that Pecker's got. But at the same, nevertheless, I believe that there's a lot of good information that will come out when he does testify.
So you brought up the safe. And there's information that there's a safe and that it does exist and it has damaging information on the president. In the story of the safe, there was a quote that I want to read to you. It says, fearful that the documents might be used against American media, Pecker removed them from the safe in the weeks before Trump's inauguration. Do you think it's likely that the safe is still there, that he still has the documents, that they exist, that he has cooperated so fully with the Southern District that he's handed over those documents?
I don't know if he's
Does he understand what cooperation is, that he does have to hand over those documents
I think if he and his attorneys read the letter that they got today, or that was published today, rather, of course he knows, because it's spelled out quite clearly what he can't and what cannot do, because if he messes up on one of those things, he's back in court again. So he really cares about himself. He's going to make sure that they don't violate any of those rules.
Did you ever hear of a safe like this existing when you worked there?
No, but I'm not surprised, because look at the culture of the Enquirer. You know, it's all about lock and key and keeping things secret. It would be perfectly natural for them to have a safe, even though it's kind of antiquated in today's world where everything is digital.
Why have a safe?
Just power, influence, leverage. I got the goods. Don't mess with me. That's really what it's about.
It doesn't necessarily seem like an up-and-up practice to have a safe like that with...
Well, look what we're talking about, the National Enquirer. You can't say up and up and speak about the Enquirer and tabs in the same breath.
Should the president be nervous right now?
I believe he should be very nervous. I mean, look at what we're seeing today.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.